Welcome, folks, to the episode number 32 of the No Conference for Old Men podcast. The podcast where three old guys are talking Houston Cougars basketball with a bit of Big 12 coverage added in as well. And proud members of the GoCoogs.com network, the undisputed number one Houston Cougars content provider. So we've got a quick turnaround with another episode just a few days after our tough loss in game number 2 versus now number 5 Auburn this past Saturday. Because we've got a game tomorrow on tap versus Louisiana-Lafayette, this will be somewhat of an abbreviated episode where we'll each go into the painful details related to the Auburn loss and then get into the preview of our one game this week versus Louisiana as the team attempts to course correct a bit. Tom, why don't we get started off with your viewpoint from our Auburn 74-69 loss at the Fertitta Center?
Well, first of all, guys, it was a heavyweight matchup this early in the season. You know, just 2 games into the season, we got off to a really good start. We were up by 9 points, and I think in the last 15 minutes, I think we gave up. I think it was around 43 points. A lot of people want to talk about offense. You know, they get obsessed about that, but the game was won or lost on the defensive end. I think they shot like 57%, which is unheard of against a Kelvin team. Usually that percentage is around 37%. Don't want to make excuses, but you know there's a lot of things that Kelvin's going to go back and he's going to look at, and I'm sure he was relishing the opportunity to have the film session and tell his team is that, you know, I told you guys the last 2 months, you know, I wouldn't say didn't listen, but I think now it's a learning process. Bill and I were talking before he came on the show. You know, the pick and roll defense was really, I wouldn't say exposed. And Kelvin said, we're not going to go back and reinvent the wheel. You know, you just have to do what you do and do it better. I thought in the pick and roll defense, our bigs didn't get up to the line of scrimmage. In other words, they didn't get up close to the ball handler and make it uncomfortable for him to pass the ball. The bigs were playing a little too far back and with their hands down. I call that dead hands. And the Auburn's guards were able to then to hit the short roller, and then they end up with basically like a 4-on-3. Pettiford had a huge game for Auburn, and once again, all we had on him besides his high school film is the game against Vermont where he shot 0 for 4. We did a great job on their other 2 shooters, Miles Kelly, and I'm not sure who the other one. You had Peguis, and you had a few others, but did a really good job on them. But like I said, you know, it was Pettiford that killed us. Broom inside, he got some angles on our bigs, especially JoJo, and you know this is all on film. Kelvin's a Hall of Fame coach, and he'll go back there and he'll take a look at the game, and he has a couple of days to work on that. But here's the deal. I'd rather have us play a team like Auburn this early in the year and kind of have these things exposed so Kelvin can come back and tell the team, you know, this is what we need to work on, and then, you know, get after it, as opposed to playing 9 or 10 cupcakes where a lot of your mistakes are covered up because you're going to win by 40 or 50 anyways, and it kind of falls on deaf ears. But, you know, when you lose a game, it seems like you get the team's attention, you know, a little bit more, and, you know, expect us to come out tomorrow against Louisiana and really play good.
Yeah, completely agree, Tom. Bill, how about your take from the game?
Well, I won't say it was a tale of 2 halves, but because we were still up 9 into the second half, it was certainly down the stretch. But you know, we could have been up pretty big at halftime. We were up 5, 33-28. We held them to 28. They shot 3 of 13 from 3 in the first half, 23%, and 2 of those 3 were banked in. And
exactly.
and I'm not, you know, I'm not a lip reader, and I couldn't hear it, but I'm quite sure that neither one of those was called. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they were a little fortunate. We had a tough time running the offense, and they're a really, really good defensive team, and we talked about it in the preview that you know how strong they are defensively. We also missed free throws in the first half, and so it could have been we could have been up big. We played exceptionally well defensively, and the second half, having been at the game at the Toyota Center last year against A&M, watching Pettiford in late in the second half, it kind of reminded me of us versus Wade Taylor.
Oh yeah,
where he was hitting everything, and yeah, I mean it was somewhat unexpected. He's coming in as a 5-star high school recruit out of New Jersey, and great player, and is going to step up. But based on that 0-4 versus Vermont, and not being especially involved in the offense, you just don't expect that. Like Tom said, we were talking about the pick and roll, and I agree with Tom about the guard. When we would go out, typically it was Tugler going out to double the guard, and it seemed like they were getting rid of the ball quickly. The double team wasn't as effective as I'm sure it will be. But the other thing that I picked up on watching the game was that Broom would get the ball, and he wasn't entirely uncontested, but it was almost like he was oftentimes. I think the weak side help was a little slow in getting over, and that was something that I really noticed. One thing, though, that really wasn't mentioned during the game, and it's been talked about a little bit afterwards, is that Francis only played 9 minutes. He's still hurt. If he's there to step up from the weak side, that makes it an awful lot more difficult for Broom to get to the basket. So, take everything for what it's worth. I mean, Broom was 10 of 15 for the field. He didn't shoot that well, I don't think, in the first half, but 10 of 15 from the field, 20 points, 9 boards. Pettiford, 7 of 12 from the field, 21 points, 5 of 8, as we talked about, from 3. And then a guy who doesn't do much of anything, Johnson, had 11 points and 10 boards. He was really their entire offense in the first half, and he doesn't do much of anything. So, we took 7 more shots than they did. We held them. We forced them into 10 turnovers in the first half, only 2 in the second. So, Bruce Pearl made adjustments at halftime. They came out. Their pressure defense, full court, at least defending the inbounds pass, was there the entire game. Made us work hard. Their perimeter defense is good. They're long. They're perimeter players. They're athletic. It was a tough game, but like Tom said, it was a great early game to play. I'm thrilled that we played that game, win or lose. Obviously, I wish we would have won, but it's great to play a game like that because that's going to prepare us for everything down the road. They just, down the stretch, they were a better team. And is it horrible to say that? I think absolutely not. They're number 5 in the nation right now. They were number 11 coming into the game. Play a really good team, and sometimes they're going to play better than you do. And down the stretch, they did. And I'm not going to get into this, but yeah, I encountered online some people who were saying that Kelvin needs to change the way he does things. Kelvin's not the right coach to lead us to a championship. Kelvin can only get us to the Sweet 16. If you've watched us the last few years, that's insane. And saying that we're nowhere near a program like Connecticut. We play ugly games and we can't win playing ugly games. And I pointed out to the guy, were you at all paying attention last year when during the Big 12 Big East Challenge that UConn went into Lawrence and lost 69-65 in an extraordinarily ugly game? So how is it using your, and I'm using air quotes, logic, that Connecticut could win the title if they play ugly games as well? What I should have realized was not everyone is as intellectually up to speed as they might be. He could have even been a 4-year-old that got on his parents' computer and So I should be a little more empathetic, I guess. But I was a little irritated after the game, and to start just attacking Calvin specifically just set me off. So I'll be a little better controlled going forward.
Well, I always come back to the Scott Skiles quote. He said, "Basketball's like church; many attend, but few understand." So,
yeah, very true. Very true.
We're 1-1. We're 2 games into what could be a 40-game season, or at least a 35-game season. It's the second game. It's not the end of the world. The sky isn't falling. It's like, come on.
And everybody needs to look at their calendar.
Yeah.
It's 4 months from Selection Sunday.
Yeah, it's still a long road. Yeah, this was definitely a tough loss in actually a really strange one from the analytics perspective. If you just look at the full game ending stats, because if you look at the final stats, we limited Auburn to 46% effective field goal percentage, 30.4% from 3, really right at our number 2 ranked standard from last season. So we played great defense overall for the game. We also forced them to turnovers on 20% of their possessions, which is a bit off from last season, but to be expected with a team of the caliber of Auburn. Now, on offense, we didn't shoot as well as our standard from last season. We ended at 46% to our standard of 50%, but not that far off. But we did offensive rebound even better than we did last season at 45.5% of our misses. So pretty good, but it just appeared from the full game stats that Auburn did just a little bit better than us on both offense and D. But then when you look more closely, it tells a slightly different story. We actually led at the 15-minute mark, 41-32, and we're in total control of the game at that point. And then I actually went through all the game stats, and if you look at the stats right at that point when we were leading by 9 with 15 minutes left, Auburn's effective field goal percentage was down at 26% and only 18.75% from 3. And we were having a stellar game on D and being very disciplined on offense like we normally do. And if you look at the stats, we were pretty consistent on offense the entire time. We didn't really hit a terrible stretch at all. But in the final 15 minutes, Auburn turned the switch on offense. And we lost our way, I'd say, on defensively defending at the top on the perimeter, which in turn opened things up down low for Broome. Last 15 minutes, Auburn's effective field goal percentage was a staggering 73%, which is crazy. And they were 57% from three-point range. While our three-point shooting, if you look very specifically, went cold, especially with Cryer. And this is actually, I'd say, the perfect example of what you, Bill, have been emphasizing all offseason long with what we would be missing without Shed on top on D. Pettiford, the freshman, ended with a game-staggering player box score plus 26.5 in 24 minutes, while Uzan was at a negative 0.4 for the game. Oh, and Auburn's game 1 versus Vermont, Pettiford had, as you guys had highlighted, 0 points, fouled out in 19 minutes, and ended with a player box score plus minus negative 10.4, right? So there's no way you could have planned for the kind of explosion that he had for this game. And, this is where we miss someone of the caliber, obviously, of Shed up top to cool down a kid that is abnormally hot for the game. And unfortunately, no one else was able to step up and really bother him or get him off of his rhythm at that point. So lots for the team to work on. It's only November, folks, right? As you guys have mentioned as well. And what I really like is that Samson now has game tape and some analytics to reinforce his messaging to the kids. And I'll say specifically Uzan, now he's got a much better understanding of the expectations this team has for the point guard position and on defense as a program. So I'm really looking forward to how the team develops. I'm expecting a jump up in how we play with only one game and a full week of practice to iron things out this next week. So with that, let's talk about tomorrow's game versus Louisiana-Lafayette. Bill, What's your players' take on this matchup on the heels of the Auburn loss? And what are you expecting to see versus Louisiana?
Louisiana is a good team. They come from a really good conference, the Sun Belt, a really good mid-major conference. People from Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin people, and others around the country know James Madison all too well. They've been very good. This is a good mid-major conference. Their coach is Bob Marlin. He's in his 14th year, and he has not had a losing record since 2014. So it's been 10 years of success. This may sound familiar to U of H fans, but Marlin coaches a very high-pressure D that defends the three exceptionally well. They led the nation in three-point field goal percentage allowed last year at a meager 28%.
Yeah.
And they were 25th nationally in turnovers forced.
Yep.
They're playing once again, largely a mid-major schedule, but still kind of a U of H light, if you will. They were 19-14 last year. They kind of fell apart down the stretch. They were 5th in the Sun Belt. They were 10-8. They were predicted this year anywhere from 3 to 5 that I've seen. However, this is where everything turns on its head for Louisiana. Their best player, their big man, first team all Sun Belt, Hosanna Katenge, suffered a non-contact injury and is out for his senior year.
Oh,
he is gone. And so they just lost their best player. This is going to hurt them throughout the entire year, and it's going to hurt them badly. They've played 2 games so far. They lost at home to Kent State, and you might think, oh, Kent State. Well, once again, a really good team. Kent State's predicted anywhere from 2 to 4 in the Mid-American, and another conference that wins games in the NCAA tournament. They lost at home 70-66, and then they annihilated, not surprisingly, UT, and that would be UT Dallas. 82-65. So they're 1-1 right now. Without Katenge, I mean, that's really hurts them. They become a small team. Probably their best player, his name's Kentrell Garnett. He's a 6'1" shooting guard, very good shooter, and an exceptionally good on-ball defender. Their point guard, Michael Thomas, he's solid. Good defender, but solid. He only averaged 6 points, 2 assists last year. Couple people that they brought in, and I'm only going to mention 4 players on this team because there's no need to mention any more. Karan Davis, a 6'6" shooting guard. He originally signed with Louisville. He never played a single game for them. There were no discipline issues. There nothing like that. He was fully vetted before he came to Louisiana, and no issues. He scored 24 and led them with 4 assists against UT Dallas. Garnett, by the way, led him with 14 against in the loss to Kent State. And then the last one I'll mention is Zeke Cook. He's a 6'6" power forward from the team that we played 2 games ago, Jackson State. He's a solid inside player. He grabbed 8 boards against Kent State, 9 boards against UT Dallas. So he's their inside guy, but he's 6'6". This is not a big team. Without Katenge, they're small. They're a good perimeter defensive team. They're not a good offensive team, especially. They just got killed by the Katenge injury. They're still going to defend well because they've still got their perimeter players, but they're not going to rebound well against us. And I think that they're going to have real problems. Their perimeters guys scoring against our D. I think coming off the Auburn game, I've got to imagine we're going to be pretty fired up playing in the Fertitta Center. And whereas if Katenge was playing, I'd say this is maybe a 14, 15-point win. Without him, I think we win this game 80-47.
80-47. Oh, wow. Okay. How about you, Tom? What's your coach's perspective on the game?
Well, the first thing I'd like to mention is This is one of Malik Wilson's old schools. Played for Texas Tech, and Malik also played for Louisiana-ULL.
Oh.
So I'm hoping Malik gets some good playing time and has a good game against his former school. Like Bill mentioned, when you think about Louisiana, you think about their coach Bob Marlin. He coached at Sam Houston State for several years. And I remember during one of our coaching searches, I can't remember which one it was, but there was quite a few people who were lobbying for us to give Bob Marlin a look. And then he left Sam Houston State, and then he went on to Louisiana. Like Bill mentioned earlier, they like to hit the throttle, push the ball, shoot lots of threes. Here's my coach's take on this. Kelvin will have had 3 days of practice plus the practice before the game. I want to call it a shoot around, but our shoot around is not a shoot around. It's like a full out hour practice. On game day. It's none of this. Okay, let's go 5-on-0 and walk through our sets or whatever. Our guys are getting after it. So you put those 3 practices plus practice on game day, and I think you're going to see a lot of improvements in our pick and roll defense. I think we'll monster the post better. There were a couple of situations in the game on Saturday where we had our guards posted up and our 5-man supposed to come over, and both times it happened, it ended up in an Auburn bucket. So I'm sure our monster will be better, pick and roll defense will be better, and our transition defense will be better too. A couple of times we got beaten transition. I'm sure Kelvin has looked at film, and I'm sure he's chewed on the team collectively, and I'm sure he's chewed on a few players individually that need to step it up a little bit on the defensive end.
Yeah, completely agree. So from an analytics perspective, looking at 2024's season-ending numbers, as everyone knows, we were number 19th in adjusted offensive efficiency. Louisiana ended the year at 140 in adjusted defensive efficiency. On the flip side, we were number 2 in adjusted defensive efficiency, while Louisiana was a dismal 183rd in adjusted offensive efficiency. On offense, Louisiana is really not that good at anything, ranking beyond number 165 in both effective field goal percentage as well as turnover percentage. And to make things worse, they also don't offensive rebound very well, ranking 108th last year in KenPom in offensive rebound percentage. Then you match that up against our number 2 effective field goal percentage D that defends every shot. And I'm expecting an ugly outing for Louisiana tomorrow evening. On the flip side, Louisiana-Lafayette's D, it's not great, ranking 140th, but, Bill, as you had mentioned, they're actually elite at turning teams over, ranking 25th in turnover percentage, and as you'd also highlighted, number 1 in the country at defending the 3-point shot. However, unfortunately, they were also a lowly 317th in defending the 2-point shot. So expect a feast for our big men inside and guards getting to the hoop tomorrow endlessly.
Agreed. I totally agree.
Yeah. So based on the metrics, yeah.
Oh, after you get through, Steve, I'd like to remind me that I'd like to make a comment about what you just said about the guards.
Okay. I mean, based on the metrics, this is projected to be a 23-point win for the Coogs at home by KenPom. I think it's going to be one of those metrics-busting wins, especially after an Auburn loss. So I've projected a 92-59 33-point win, and I'll be posting that on GoCoogs.com.
No, we've got the same margin of victory.
Yeah.
Just you're expecting a little more offense.
Yeah. But I think in the end, you're probably right. I think it's going to be lower scoring. So why don't you go ahead, Tom?
Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody heard Kelvin's interview. I think it was yesterday morning or maybe the morning. I can't remember which morning it was. It was the one where he met with some reporters, Duarte, Chris Gardner. I don't know if Ryan was there or not, but Kelvin did talk about him and his staff. They're going to look at some stuff, and they wanted to get better spacing on offense. And he said, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do because I don't want anybody to know, but it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with. Right now we've used 2 bigs with 3 guards or wings, whatever you want to call them. the best way to space the floor, probably the optimum way to space the floor is with 4 players. You put 2 in the slots, 2 in the corners, and then you have your big plays like what they call the dunker spot. We'll see how they space it. The only other thing I can think of is Robert Stugler sometimes stepping out, to the 3-point line, whether they shoot it or not, just creates some more space and where you get some double and triple gaps to drive. But I thought it was interesting that Kelvin mentioned that, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what he has in store.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, I think in the same interview, he had also highlighted 2 other things that were related to personnel, that he was going to figure a way to get Mercy Miller in some more, as well as Arsenault in some more. And I think both of those things also kind of lend to that perspective of getting better spacing for the kids.
And on Arsenault, I don't know if you guys caught this, but he didn't go back in the second half because his Achilles got stiff.
Yeah.
And they said normally at practice in the Fertitta, there's a treadmill where he gets on the treadmill and he keeps it warm, but they didn't have a treadmill at Toyota Center for some reason. And, the Achilles kind of got tightened. Cold, stiffened up, and he didn't go back in the game. So people who might not have heard about that, were wondering how come he didn't play much after, I can't remember what point it was, about 13, 14 minutes, I think it was. So hopefully everything progresses for him. We see more Terrence tomorrow because, he did get off to a really good start that first game. So lots of good things. And if you all remember, who was our best, in Kelvin's own words, who was our best rebounder last year before he got hurt?
Yeah, it was Arsenault.
It was Terrence, and that hurt us also in the game on Saturday night. Plus, another thing that hurt us, Milos getting his 4th foul was a big factor in the game Saturday too. I know one was pretty chintzy. It was a guy coming off a flex cut, and Milos just kind of bumped him a little bit, and he flopped. Auburn guy just threw his body into the basket stanchion, and picked up I think it was his 3rd or 4th on that one. So looking forward to the game tomorrow. Looking to see some of the bench players get in. I'm looking for a Coug victory.
Yeah, completely agree. So that's it for our abbreviated 30-second episode of the No Conference for Old Men podcast. Hope you all enjoyed it. And again, would really appreciate it if folks would follow, subscribe, or collect our podcast, depending on your podcast platform of choice. We are also available via the Republic of Football podcast feed from the folks at Dave Campbell's Texas Football as the only basketball-centric podcast, or at the GoCoogs.com website for those that prefer to digest the content that way. We appreciate the continued support from all, and please give us a follow on our Twitter account, No Conference for Old Men. Thank you all again for listening, and be on the lookout for next week's episode to download and listen. Take care, everyone.